Hello, everyone. Welcome to Plan B's 36 Strategies Special Edition with Mr. David Leong, Dr. Patrick Liu, and Ms. Dorcas Tan. I'm Jessie Leong, and it's my pleasure to have all of you here tonight. For those of you who have been following our weekly 36 Strategies episodes, today is a chance for you to ask any question you have with regards to using the strategies for re-strategizing and resetting for your businesses during this challenging time. For all of you who are already here, please type hi in the comments so that we know that you are here. Hi, Ms. Guan. Thank you for leaving your comments. And at the same time, could all of you please like and share this live for us so that we can get more people to benefit from tonight's sharing. Tonight, Mr. David, Dr. Patrick, and Ms. Dorcas are going to share with you on how various businesses should respond to imminent crisis as the conflict between US and China escalate during this global pandemic. By the end of the video, you will learn strategies on, number one, how tenants should deal with piled up rental arrears and negotiate a settlement after deferment period. Number two, how to overcome uncertainties among employers and workers. Number three, how workers can survive when there is no more fuel below the pot with the ongoing unpaid leaves, wage cuts, and lowered household income. Number four, whether Singapore employers should start to right size and to reduce headcounts. Number five, how Singapore businesses can survive. And lastly, how workers can respond to the double whammy crisis when they could already be at the point of losing grip of reality and proportions. If you are first time watching this Facebook Live with Plan B Education, please type the country you are from and which industry you are in for us to know you better. And at any point of time during the live sharing, once you have a question in your mind, please type it in the comment. We will address them towards the end of the sharing. And now, I would like to introduce our speakers. Our anchor speaker, Mr. David Leong, is the Managing Director of People Worldwide Consulting. He started his entrepreneurial ventures early, soon after he graduated from the National University of Singapore in 1994 with a Bachelor of Business Administration degree. He has founded various companies since graduation, and his businesses span across diverse fields from corporate finance, advisory and restructuring, IT and technology, search and recruitment. He founded iProperty in 1999 and filed for public listing in year 2000. David is widely regarded as an expert resource and a leader in the business field. His views are often sought by local media such as the Straits Times, Business Times, 联合早报, and 联合晚报 on economics, politics, and HR issues. And next is our guest speaker, Dr. Patrick Liu. Dr. Patrick Liu is an award-winning entrepreneur, humanitarian, and philanthropist. He graduated with a doctorate degree in education from the University of Southern California. His dissertation revolved around financial intelligence. Regarded as one of the most successful entrepreneurs and investors, he has helped to list more than 3 companies on 3 stock exchanges in 3 different countries: Singapore Exchange, Australia Exchange, and New York Stock Exchange. Dr. Patrick is actively involved in supporting humanitarian, philanthropic, and charity causes and has won numerous awards for his good work. He has also won international business awards, including the Global Leader Award, Asia Pacific Entrepreneurship Award, and the Entrepreneur of the Year Award for social contributions. And our second guest speaker is Ms. Dorcas Dunn. Ms. Dorcas is the founder and CEO of Recruit In, an award-winning one-stop HR solutions company specializing in recruitment and headhunting, as well as HR consultancy services. She holds an executive master in human resources and industry organization psychology, and has more than 20 years of HR experience with senior HR appointments in various MNCs. During the early stages of her career, she led a top-performing team of more than 30 recruitment consultants in an award-winning recruitment agency, and was the youngest talent director at the Singapore Sport Council when she was hired. Dorcas also led the HR operation for her client, the Changi Airport Group, taking care of more than 600 service personnel in the world's best airport before she set up her own company. And once again, I would like to warmly welcome Mr. David Leong.
Hello.
Hello. Dr. Patrick Liu. Hello. And Ms. Dorcas Tan. Thank you. Thank you for being here with us. Yes. And may I now invite Mr. David Leong to share today's topic.
Thanks so much for the introduction. Today, I'm very happy to have Patrick here and Dorcas here to join us. I've known Patrick for close to 20 years. And since this is live, I'd like to share my thoughts of Patrick here and let him know what I think of him. In the 20 years that I know of Patrick, I've never seen a man as energetic, as charismatic as he is. And if God is to send an angel to people to help people, I think they send the spirit of the angel through Patrick, because he served with no need for reciprocity. And I met him many times, have many sessions with him. We talk philosophically, and every time when he share his philanthropic activities, I will be so touched by the way he reach out to people. And the group of people that he's reaching out to are the migrant workers, who definitely would not give him any benefits. But because he loved people in general, he goes down to the ground to serve these migrant workers, teaching them IT skills. And I'd like to take this opportunity to share my sentiment with you, Patrick. I mean, I'm not shared with you personally, right? Both of us serve in the grassroots for a long time. And loving people is one of the traits we must have. But I think Patrick has gone beyond the call of his one person's ability to make a difference to the world. I think tonight we are very honored to have him here, because I'm sure he will be sharing a lot of his use cases and let people, the employers and the workers, know how we should be dealing with a situation like this today, because we're in unprecedented times. Okay, Jessie, shall we start? Can we have the deck up?
Okay, sure.
All right. You see, this is a graph for the last 100 years or so. And if somebody were to leave and in the period of 1900 and get born in the year 1900, he would have gone through many crises. He would have experienced the Spanish flu. He would have gone through the World War I. He have gone through the Great Depression in the 1929, the crash. And if you look at the line, it shows a lot of blips along the way. But a dollar then, over the last 100 years, has also escalated in value. And you see that there's a positive bias line going upwards. So even in today's pandemic, a lot of people are very fearful of what is to come. But the general direction points to the fact that in whatever situation, even though we are down into a trough, the general line is pointing upwards. So the first point that I'd like to make today is that despite the pandemic and whatever adversity that may come along, we should be encouraged by the fact that history tells us that we will still move forward as a people. The global world will still proceed forward nicely in that positive bias trend. The next slide, Jesse. Again, if you look at all the different chart from the S&P to the even the US Australian dollar pair, you realize that during all the different crises, whether is it the coronavirus today, or whether is it SARS, or the various others crises that that happen, the vibration and the lines are about the same. What does it show? In our last discussion, during the episode where we talk about forex, and I mentioned that the curves are actually the body of a dragon, and they are actually all the sine curve and cosine curve put together. And what we're seeing are actually the shape of things. So when you see the different curves, we are actually quite encouraged by the fact that even though a crisis has happened, there are positive things that would pan out in the future. So that when we move along the trend line, we realize that if we get ourselves concerted, business still get conducted, people still would have a job, except that we need to change. So this is an inflection point where we enter into. And the lesson for today is that despite whatever is happening, even if there's a huge conflict that would escalate between US and China, there will still be opportunity for us to pick up assets, bet on them, take a position, so that over the next 10, 20 years, we will see capital appreciation along the way. And this has been demonstrated amply through the graphs and through the curves in the historical trend. Next slide, Jesse. Now, this is a Spanish flu, very similar to what we are experiencing today with the coronavirus. The flu itself started in 1917, and it lasted for a year, 1918, and it went away. And the period where it started, you see that it had a sharp drop to the lower bound of the curve. And then how many years did it take for a rebound of the economy? If you count the number of months, it's barely 2 years. And that was in 1917 to 1918. And the last time round when we had SARS, we also take barely a year for SARS to get over. And then for Singapore, we sprung back into action, and we did a strong economic recovery. So if there's any consolation, if you look at the graph, even in worst of time, where the Spanish flu killed more people, it also took about 2 years for the world to rebound. Next slide, Jesse. So the 1918 pandemic actually infected 1/3 the world population. 500 million people get infected, and the death rate was 50 million worldwide. Compared to what we have today, this is still considered minuscule, but we have important learning lessons from this, because despite the gravity of the infection at that point in time, people still press on, innovated, and changed, and life carry on into the future. Next slide, Jesse. Now, this is a picture that was taken in 1917. And you look at the way they do their isolation, no difference from the way we are organizing it today, right? And you see people wearing masks at that point in time, back in those days. Next, Jesse. Jesse, can we have the next slide, please? So they also organize themselves into tents, and then you will see this happening very soon in Tanjung Pagar, the PSE area. They will be extending tents like that as well. Masks are also being worn, and isolation also being done, and it just look faintly familiar. So if you look back at history, we see similarities, except that we are into cycles, and then we are into this cycle in 2020. You look at it, it's about 100 years, right? The next slide. Now, this is funny. The bubble, cutting hair, and this is in the period of 1917 and 1918. So the bubble themselves also wear masks along with their very nice fedora hats, right? So they take precaution at that point in time. They know that the virus also get transmitted through droplets. So this is a funny scene, but also looked very familiar to our today's haircutting salon when CB was relaxed for people to go and cut hair. So we have situation like that as well. Next, Jesse. So the pandemic is one problem that we are facing. Now, today's topic is really about escalated US-China conflict in the midst of a pandemic. And it got a bit worrisome because the US is doing a lot of posturing. And US posturing indicated that they would do various things. And among them would be to cut the US debt holding and asking China for compensation, right? So those are provocative action by US, and it must necessarily means that China needs to retaliate. So with that kind of action, counteraction, trade will be impacted. And in a situation like today, we have to take a position where if something like that to happen, how should business respond to such reaction? The next slide, Jesse. So you see, China over the last few days came out to say that this is not very nice. Now we may be entering into a new Cold War situation, and the Chinese also comes forth to say that this hard push by US is making China very uncomfortable, right? And if this uncomfortable goes to the brink, and we all need one tip, right? And if the tip falls over, and the situation get escalated, the world must prepare for the worst. So the worst may not be the pandemic, because we all know that in pandemic in history, it just takes probably 18 months at most, or 2 years for it to do a recovery. But in this case, if a war is to be started, then business needs to brace themselves for very, very hard time. Next, Jesse. So these are some of the headline news over the last 2 weeks. And every time you see the headline news, you get a bit worried because you see escalation of trade tension between US and China. It is not merely restricted to the area of trade. It relates to also financial currencies, and it also relates to technology. And the US is playing very hard to make sure that the technology advancement of China is not going to be easy. But I think going forward, Chinese will innovate and move much quicker, because as an economy, in terms of integrated resources to the technological field, Chinese has leaped much further than the US in this respect. Next slide, Jesse. So it's really a double whammy right now. Double whammy because we are in the middle of a pandemic, and just prior to the pandemic becoming real, near near end part of last year, beginning part of this year, the US, China already have a trade tiff, and a trade tiff resulted in a trade war with a punitive tariff being applied to each other's goods and services. And the whole world, global supply chain were affected. And when that happened, everybody was jittering, and businesses got affected, and we already went into a frozen state because trade was impacted by the trade spat between US and China, and then this pandemic came about. It gave a slight reprieve because people are very concentrated in fighting the coronavirus, and the trade spat became right at the back of people's mind. But while we are recovering, we can see that the dispute between US and China becomes a bit sharper, and we need to take note of that to react as a business owner. Next, Jesse. So now comes the question. We would like to ask Dr. Patrick, how should business react to this?
That's a very, very good question. We can take it on a multiple level. At the very basic level is a survival level, and that's to all entrepreneurs will have to look at your own business and say, how do I make sure that I stay intact? With all these major challenges going on, as David mentioned, it's a double whammy. It's more than a double whammy right now because you're facing challenges in many, many fronts. And of course, playing the survival game is not the only way to pull through this crisis. At the end of the day, you have to relook at your whole business model and say, how can you redesign your business model? How can you refresh your business model? How can you invigorate your whole organization so that you can press forward? Because, looking inward is not the way to solve a problem. You have to look externally and say, what else can we do? Can we take our business into another level? Can we digitalize our products and services? Can we digitalize our procurement? Then can we take it another level to say, can we use our resources to create new products and services? And then eventually to go to another higher level and to say, can I remake my whole company to be able to survive? And fortunately, in the recent past, there are some real-life examples of companies that have done very, very well. I think of one company called Ling Yuan in China, in the cosmetic business, traditionally in the brick and mortar business. But they will very quickly transform themselves into an online business, and they've actually done very, very well. I think of even traditional business like vineyard. Vineyard depends on wine tasting. But how do you do wine tasting when we're all under isolation? We all have to maintain safe distancing. And quite interestingly enough, I found two examples of companies. One is a brewery that actually conducts wine tasting online, wine tasting classes. Another company, the London Library Distillery, actually do wine tasting by sending their liquor to the customers basically. So my point very simply is, at the end of the day, there are still multiple opportunities. I believe, as experts say, this is the crisis of the century. I also believe it is also the opportunity of our lifetime to be able to really reflect and review our own business model and take a step to a higher level, basically. My own company, for example, I can tell you this, I'm very, very excited because within 6.5 weeks, we have actually redesigned, remodeled the whole company to become an online business. And I just wrote, every week I write a report. I'm a boss that actually report to my subordinates. I reported to my employees, and I tell them with the new model, we can be 10 times bigger, we can be 100 times bigger, basically. Great.
I totally agree with Patrick. I think the business reaction to this issue is really to go digital. What do you think, Dorcas?
You hear me? Hi. Okay, so in order, Dr. Patrick is totally right. Right now, it's all about maybe the survival stage. I think a lot of companies, they are not even thinking about growth at this stage. It's about maybe living the day to day in order to survive, because there's still operation costs to be covered. So I think it's very much into how company continue to innovate to, as what David has shared with us previously, with the little business that's still available out in the market. How do you basically be if there's just this little pie that's left, how do you be the agency or be the company that basically, get that business? There's still going to be business to be done, but it's just a matter of it's getting smaller. So how do we basically re-innovate and to retrain our people to be able to catch up with this transformation, with these challenges out in the market?
Yeah. So I kind of summarize the thing in two. The first part is going digital is a necessary part. So the story goes like this. So if you are running a business, the thing that you should be asking yourself is, what would be my digital story? How should I be presenting my business in a digital way and going online to serve my customers? So that should be the prerogative of the business today, as in now, because if you don't change and go online to the consumers, you'll be losing your market share. It is very obvious that in these 2 months, the people have been going up online to do their buying, whether is it grocery or whether is it online purchase of their shirts, their pants, or even the amplifier, even computers, right? So if you do not have the logistic to present your stocks, all your goods, all your services online, and have a solution to payment and receiving money online, and then have a solution to deliver, then essentially you are going to be primed for death very soon. Because the virtual world, it's going to be very real. The footfall in retail malls is going to drop very sharply. And for offices, if social distancing becomes entrenched, and if telecommuting is becoming a pattern of work, it simply means that going to office is an old-fashioned idea. When that happens, property prices would shift downwards because the demand for office space and retail space would shift downwards. And the whole space concept would have to change because people no longer goes back to office to work because they can do everything online. So I think this is the number one thing that I think business should consider, posturing in the digital world. Number two, I think it is rightly put by Dorcas. In today's context, it is not about profitability anymore. If you can make profit in today's time and get going and expand your business, they are in the blessed sector. But many of us who are in the traditional business will face a certain demise or certain death because we simply do not have business to run. When even the COVID is lifted, there's simply nothing to do. Businesses like that will have to find a new pivot to position themselves. Now, why is it important to talk about survival? Because in today's context, if we are still talking about the 1-year plan, 2-year plan, 3-year plan, I think these are superfluous discussion because we cannot see the future very far ahead, and there's no future planning to talk about because it simply is irrelevant. The people who have been sitting on boardroom doing their long-term planning 6 months ago will have to throw away those strategic plans that they have formulated and come up with new plans to solve today's problem. So like just imagine in 1912 when the Titanic left France to go to New York, and then everybody is celebrating in that journey to arrive in New York to think that what they would want to do when they arrive in New York. But unfortunately, they hit into an iceberg. So at that point in time, when they enter into that stage of crisis where the whole ship is sinking, nobody would be thinking what they would do in New York. They wouldn't be thinking which restaurant they'll be going to or which hotel they'll be staying in. The immediate concern would be to save themselves from the drowning vessel. So what would happen? They will have to solve their problem today So businesses today would have to start to react in that kind of emergency mode. First, to position themselves digitally and ask themselves, what is my digital story? The second, like what Patrick would have done, right? To come up with a whole slew of activities or innovation to reprime their business and repivot the business to make sure that they can survive this crisis. Anything to add, Patrick? Is there anything you want to add, Dorcas?
Examples of some of the, I do have some examples of clients or people around me that has innovated themselves really well. So from some of the F&B clients that I have, right, of course, they immediately jump into the Grab food, Deliveroo type of model. So at least they have something to survive on while they wait for the new government policies to come out. Then we also have, we know of a F&B store that basically comes out with dry bak kut teh, tang liao. So it's very interesting. 老街肉骨茶. So it's very interesting. They even have like a powdered formed soya bean mixture so that people can actually buy it back home. So that's how fast all these companies has innovate to actually change along with the time. So we also have clients that basically has been surviving a little bit better, maybe the logistic related industry or maybe the healthcare industry. But I think one thing is for sure, everybody seems to be a little bit more prudent right now, a little bit more cost conscious. But in terms of the way we recruiters do our recruitment is also a little bit different. Of course, we do Zoom interview, Skype interview, a lot more than that. And of course, on top of that, like even for my own company, right, we diversified to ensure that we do a little bit more of the HR consulting business, a little bit more of the project management business, rather than the permanent, because permanent orders definitely dropped quite a lot. So generally, we just, along with the diversification of the business, we are able to survive a little bit better than the rest of the people. So I think it's really important that first thing is, during this time that we are all in a resting mode or a little bit less busy, it's really important that we spend a little bit more time with the family. These are really precious that money cannot buy.
That's correct. All right, maybe you proceed to the strategy part. Jessie, can you have the next slide? Okay, bring on to the next slide as well. Jessie, okay. 欲擒故纵. This is an interesting strategy. It talks about avoidance of direct confrontation so that the counterparty will not get repelled so much so that they will react aggressively and to force them into fierce retaliation. So avoid the direct confrontation and so that your counterparty can escape, give them a pathway to escape, and let the counterparty retreat, and then play with time. Because as they retreat, they'll be exhausted, they will lose focus, and then in the process of their retreating, you'll find an opportune time for you to capture the moment to win the battle. So this strategy is revolving around two things: avoidance and using time to play. So hopefully the time would hopefully time can be an advantage to your strategy, because in most cases, if you examine the few previous episodes, time is an essential part of strategic play, either used to exhaust the enemy or force the enemy to fight you to the point where it hits into a winter, and then let the season kills the enemy and not you. And sometimes people are so predictive in their play of strategy. They would know roughly when would typhoon comes, earthquake comes, because when they fight in a certain terrain where the heavy rainfall will comes, they know that the soil will get muddy, And then when the enemy goes into that terrain, they can hardly move. And because of their movement problem, then it'll be opportunate time for you to move in to take them out. Next slide, Jesse. So in today's context, for retailers, they are probably very badly hit. Over the last 2 months, many shops are closed. And this is probably up Patrick's alley. This is regarding properties. Businesses has called for fair tenancy law to solve the growing imbalance in landlord-tenant relationship in this COVID-19 outbreak. And the watchdog is already studying the retail lease market amidst a lot of complaints. So in today's situation, how should the landlord react in one aspect, and then the other aspect would be how should the tenant deals with the landlord, and how should this friction and imbalance be resolved, Patrick? Patrick, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Maybe I want to take two different approaches. One is the philosophical approach, and then we'll go on to the actionable approach. While I like the 36 strategies, I like the metaphor of treating the business world like a warfare. But at the end of the day, I think we need to rise beyond just a warfare. The reason I say that is because I think in the business world, it's unlike a war. The metaphor of a war suggests is that either you win or I lose or I live or you die. 就是你死就是我活. I don't think business world should operate like this. And I also don't believe it is a zero-sum game in the sense that you win more, I will win less, or you win first, I will win second. I think there is a values and virtue in hunting as a pack, in collaboration, in strategic alliances, in coalition, basically. So let me give you an example, an actionable steps. I think landlords are also human. They also are keenly aware about the economy, slipping, nose diving before us. So some of you out there, you may want to talk to your landlord and ask your landlord, to come to a compromise so that you all can have a win-win relationship. So I've been advising on a lot of my clients to talk to the landlord and essentially to tell the landlord there are only really three things that could happen. If the company collapses, the company goes belly up, the landlord will end up with zero, nothing. And he knows that if the tenant collapsed, for him to find another tenant during this time is going to be very, very challenging. So that's the second thing, if he can never find another second tenant to replace the original tenant. So the best possibility is to sit down together and see how they can come to a situation where, landlord would be able to survive because landlord could be paying monthly mortgage payment, and then the tenant can also survive because one of the major expenses of any business, any organization is still, the renter basically. So I give you an example. One of my clients actually talked to the landlord very nicely over a few meetings, and they actually came to a compromise where the landlord say, if you continue to pay the rents and don't hold back the rents, and then I will reduce the rent by 50%. And then on top of that, whatever benefits the government gave to him, he will then pass over the benefits to the tenant. So as a result, they're getting more than 50% of the rental. I did the same during the global economic crisis, as well as the SARS crisis. I went to my landlord essentially and say that, every business is being challenged. My business no different from any other businesses, and as a result, my landlord was able to come to a compromise. Of course, sometimes it's not just a compromise in terms of the rental, it could also be a compromise in terms of terms and conditions on the delayed payment, for example. So there are many ways to skin the cat. But at the end of the day, it's not about you win, I lose. It's not about I'm first, you're last. I think it's about coming together and see how both can help each other to grow their business together.
What if the landlord, like for instance, if they are big, like a REIT, like a REITs, they are not obliging, what would happen?
I think there's also a room for you to bring all the rest of the tenants together and then maybe bargain collectively. And I think landlord is so worried, if there's any backlashes, bad publicity, unhappy tenants, because at the end of the day, they may sit tight and play hardball. But if the tenant say, in times like this, if you don't compromise and help me, come, renewal, we all will decide to pack up and go. So it's a question of whether you want to play the long game, you want to play the long haul, or you want to win for a short term, basically. And I'm sure landlords, big entrepreneurs, they know that this is the time where they cannot sit tight, basically. They have to do something about it.
What do you think, Dorcas?
Okay, so I think that, okay, from my own experience, right, I've got a lovely landlord, one of the best. So honestly speaking, when the government actually said that they are having this rebate for us, he immediately contacted me to say that he's going to pass back the rebates to me without me even asking, which is lovely. So I guess everybody kind of figure out that we need each other to survive. So we need to just ensure that number one thing is that the relationship with the landlord all the while has been good. You pay your landlord on time first. So on top of that, I think if you really, really can't pay, then perhaps you can actually work out maybe some installment plans, to pay over a longer period of time. Because as what Dr. Patrick correctly pointed out, if you die, I also die lah. So if you basically kick me out eventually, the next tenant that comes in probably might not be as smooth lah. And then the next tenant might actually bargain for a cheaper price also. So I think it's important to work together to ensure that the landlord and the tenants are working hand in hand to pull through this together.
Personally, I think the problem would be larger because post-COVID, which is after COVID, which is what I deem as AC in the previous episode. So we have a before COVID BC and then AC after COVID. So after COVID AC, I think the retail mall concept would have to also shift. I think the landlord would also have to relook into how they would like to use their retail space to bring in the traffic. Traffic may be impacted. Of the experience of shopping will have to change. So I think the landlord, assuming that I'm the landlord, I would have to come up with a different strategy to help my tenant flourish in my ecosystem. So while I'm planning the future to reconfigure the retail mall concept post-COVID or after AC, I think the immediate problem for the landlord right now is to solve today's problem for the tenant. So if they do not oblige, the tenant are likely to roll over and die because they cannot pay the rental. And even despite the fact that there's temporary measures that's been put into law for landlord and the tenant, and no immediate eviction, and the landlord cannot sue the tenant for insolvency. This will kind of prolong the whole period to allow the dust to settle. But eventually the dust would settle, says in January 2021, when the dust settled, we realized that some tenant may not have paid rental for 3-4 months. And in retail space, the rental could be very high. And if they don't pay rental for the 3-4 months, and then they accrue to January, and if they were to flip and they can't continue the business, then what would happen? Would the landlord pursue insolvency for this existing tenant, or work out with them to revive their business with a lower rental, or restructure the loan payment to a longer period so that the tenant can pay back to the landlord? What do you think, Patrick?
I think there are three basic strategies that all mall owners can apply, and all of you out there, if you are landlords, you're property owners, the three major strategies to look at. Number one is transforming the property. And this is where I always say you have to remove the label. Sometimes when people put a label on you, you're in the retail business. Actually, the label limits your mindset, restricts the possibilities and opportunities. The retail mall of today cannot be the retail mall of tomorrow. The core focus is experience. Why do I need to go to a shopping mall? Do I need to go there just to eat, shop, or is there something even more interesting to attract me to go there? Whether it's bringing celebrities in to the mall, whether it's creating high-tech entertainment, bringing virtual tours that I don't see anywhere in Singapore. When you put on a goggle, you are transported to a different experience. Whether creating interesting entertainment and leisure activities. So at the end of the day, it's not just retail; it is an experience to attract people to go in. So the second strategy is to look at how to create value, for your business, for your mall as well as for tenant. There is no reason why a shopping mall or for that matter a property owner cannot look at a shopping mall and say, why don't I help my retailers create e-commerce sites? After all, if I have economy of scale, after all, if I have better designers, better digital marketeers, I probably can do a better job than to allow each of the mall to take on the job of creating their e-commerce facilities. So we all know this. Today is not about whether you're online or whether you're brick and mortar. Today is about IOI. It is for OIO. It's about offline integrating with online business basically. There's no reason why a shopping mall cannot also provide the logistical chain to provide delivery and fulfillment for the tenant. So the first strategy is transforming the mall or the property. Second strategy is creating value for your tenant. And then the third strategy is creating interest, demand, and market. And this is where property owners, landlords, and mall operators have to think out the box and say, what can I do to bring clients for my tenant? And this is where they have to think a bit deeper and say, is there a team? Is there a mix? Is there a synergy that can create among all these retailers? So today, every retailer, every shop is actually operating like a silo. They should be working in coalition. They should be working in strategic alliances. The guy who go in and buy a shirt will also probably need to go and buy vitamins. And they also may need to go to another shop to buy something for the house. There's no reason why they cannot synergize and share their database. There's no reason why they cannot work together and create some kind of a better offer, for the clients. So let me give you three specific examples of what we have done for our clients. I've helped one of my clients to turn a really rundown abandoned area into an entertainment area. And suddenly the area people go there to eat, people go there to drink, people go there to sing, people go there to dance. It suddenly became a very hot area. I've helped another client of mine to turn, that was years ago, to turn arguably the first furniture and furnishing center. If you need anything to do with furniture and furnishing, you go to that place. And the tenant was very, very happy because you're bringing clients to them and you're helping them to improve their business. And as a result, they stay on and pay a higher rental. I've helped a client of mine to turn a commercial building that has got no demand for office spaces, but turn part of the building into a lodging house or hotel for a very niche market. So if you're a landlord, a property owner, or mall operator, you stretch your mind, there are 1,001 ways to value to the property. The gazillion way, to be able to create value of the property, and the infinite number of ways to help your tenants, to be able to improve their profit advantage and growth. Okay.
That's beautiful. I mean, I think those are necessary strategies to be adopted by a landlord to innovate and to change the team and to build logistical infrastructure to enable their tenant to move from offline to online, right? I think that must be something that the landlord must be looking at. So in today's context,
This strategy does not only apply to the landlord and property owner, it also applies to tenant. So let me give you an example. Like recently, how we transform our business model is we went to our so-called competitors and said, although we are competitors, we all have our own market because we have cut out the market. In times like this, there's no reason why I cannot sell my product to your customer and you sell your product to our customer, or you have people who didn't buy your product, they may buy my product. And by doing this, we actually expanded the market. So it is not about market share. It's not about market size. The market size may have shrunk, but your market share may have increased because you work with somebody who's so-called your competitor. And by doing this, we are actually improving your bottom line at the same time.
yes. Doctors, anything to add?
Yes, I just feel that sometimes Dr. Patrick said something which is really correct. Ensuring that everybody team up together. In a mall setting, this is so, but I've actually seen more of the Grab food deliveries recently. It's quite cute. When you click on certain things, right, you realize that a certain coffee shop or a certain hawker center, they probably only have one product to sell, maybe chicken wings lah. But just by peddling one chicken wing on their platform, right, is a little bit strange, right? So they kind of put together with the zi char store. Maybe with chicken wing, you can have choices of chicken wing, hor fun, and something else. So it's actually quite interesting that even in a coffee shop setting or hawker center, food center setting, they put together all the different store owners to basically write on the similar platform. You click on one thing, there's quite a few products and quite a few food you can actually order. There's kind of like a similar concept rather than killing each other, because they sell anyway a little bit different things, right? That appeals to different taste buds and different customers. So must as well help each other. But somebody got to champion it lah. I think for the malls, right, it is really true that in the long run, after the government grants runs out, we need to actually think about what's the best use of the malls or the shop space. How do we basically, rather than just cutting rental and things like this, how do we basically innovate and bring upon virtual reality, or maybe put together efforts of e-commerce? These are actually brilliant ideas, honestly.
I have a very good story to tell. Just say, I give you an example. During the circuit breaker measure, at one point in time, the government said you're not allowed to sell bubble tea. So most shops closed down, right? Cannot sell, what to do, close down, right? So we have one of our clients to think out the box. You cannot sell bubble tea, but you can sell your bubble tea as part of somebody else's food offering. So we go to different restaurants and we say, now you have an extra item in your menu. When your client order a steak, when your client orders some pizza, or your client orders some rice or noodle, give them a choice to order bubble tea together with that. And then I will become your supplier. Of course, in doing that, they have to lower the profit margin so that the food supplier can have some profit to put you in their menu basically. And as a result, of this strategy, actually some of the bubble tea clients of ours actually survive.
This like combo meal set in fast food restaurant. We have a combo 1, combo 2, combo 3, except that the person that synthesized this is not one restaurant, but the platform itself. So we can do cross-selling, upselling to improve sales. So everybody benefit from the transaction because the upselling and the cross-selling helps the store next door, right? So that is a combination offers. So with a combination offers, probably price will be a bit cheaper, and but they go with the volume. So this is one way where the platform can play a role to synthesize a different offering to promote sales, right? So maybe shall we go to the next strategy, Jesse? Qin Zei, Qin Huang. So this strategy is about destabilizing, demotivating, destroying the strength of the counterparty, so as to cause stress and loss of confidence in the leadership of the counterparty, and then to capture the moment to win. So to win in this case is to capture the core, the center, the head, the leader, and then the rest of the troops, the morale will drop if you capture the head. So this strategy involves destabilizing the strength of the counterparty by catching the head. Next slide, Jesse. So there are a lot of fears, demotivation, and uncertainty among employees right now and workers alike. So how to overcome this? How do we take the bull by its horn? How do we take the head and let people get a grip of reality and to move ahead and to charge ahead? Patrick?
I always say this: the first line of attack and the first line of defense is your mind and your heart. If you lose your mind, you lose your heart, the war is over basically. So as leaders, we all must make sure we look after our organization, our employee, look after them physically, mentally, emotionally, and psychologically, and socially at the same time. So I give you an example. So at the beginning of the circuit breaker measure, I knew that when you knock somebody down, eventually something will happen in their mind, something will happen in their heart. And we are beginning to see it. They have not gone cuckoo, so to say, but people get stressed mentally, they get emotionally down when they're home, and then they get social problem in the family, not because they are weirdos, but when you're shut down, something happens to the way you interact and relate with different people. So as a company, I write a letter to all my staff every day. And this letter is to share with them, I think doctors will know this better than I do, research being done in the area of positive psychology, how to be happy, lively. And then we also form teams among our organization to look after different areas of our needs. So we have one group that will champion to make sure that all of us at home are exercising. We set target, we exercise before each meal. And then there's another group that look after the social and emotional well-being. So we will have lunch together, virtually. That means all of us on the internet, on Zoom, and then you will buy your own food, I buy my own food, and we eat together and we chit chat basically. So by doing this, we actually improve the moral of the company. We actually improve the spirit of the company. Then we put ourselves in a bigger fighting chance. The next thing we ask ourselves is this: yes, the economy is down. Yes, the market is down. But that does not mean that humans have no more needs. Humans have no more wants. Humans have no more requirements. So we tell ourselves we want to create a demand-driven model. Forget what business I'm in. Forget that I'm in retail business, manufacturing business, logistics business. All these labels, as I mentioned just now, only restricts what you want to think. It's like a mental training of personality. So I give you a very quick example. We realize actually in times like this, there are a lot of people looking for opportunity to invest. We found some experts who are very good at studying the economy, looking at where the opportunities to invest and generate profit. And these are thinkers. These are people who do vigorous research. They have sophisticated technology and tools basically. So we actually brought them on board, and we said, you're good at what you're doing. We know where to find the people. And as a result of doing this, we actually generated more than $1.5 million of revenue by showing people where some of the opportunities they see in one night. So the second example I will show you is this: is that I'm a fund manager. I'm a fund manager approved by MES, and so you also know this in times like this. Everybody knows this. The best time to invest in a property is during a crisis. You get rock bottom prices. And if the property already have a tenancy, and the tenancy is signed by a credible, established, and successful tenant, they are not going to disappear, they are not going to run away. And the tenancy is for minimum of 3 years. And you and I know this, a pandemic will never last for more than 3 years. In other words, if you buy property today with such condition, you buy rock bottom prices, in a short while time, and you still can collect your rental, and then in short while time, when the pandemic is over, the price will go up, the rental will go up. So we actually went out to hunt for such possibility, and we saw so many of these opportunities. So we approach our clients. So we are thinking in the past we have to meet them physically, we have to do the contracts and all that. But cut a long story short, we realized that our clients are more than happy to meet us on Zoom, more than happy to see our online proposal, more than happy to sign a virtual contract, and more than happy to relay their money to us basically. And so from a business that doesn't exist, we created a new business because we asked ourselves, are there demands? And then we translate our whole business model to become a demand-driven model. And as long as there are humans there with needs, we will be able to create a business and offering that will meet their requirements. Get it?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Patrick. So the demand stays the same. The demand did not diminish, but the transaction method may shift. Instead of doing a viewing physically, now they can do it by Zoom. Instead of signing a contract by paper, if they can have smart contract on the blockchain or smart contract that's executable to sign digitally and is acceptable, and all fashion remains the same, from conveyancing to the completion of the sale can be done online. This would literally shift the paradigm. But has the demand changed? The demand has not changed. Just the transaction shifted from a paper-based fiscal viewing to looking at the asset as income generating property, because it comes with rental, and then you do your computation and finds that it is profitable to buy at this low price, because the rental yield, instead of being 3%, may now be 4 to 5%, because they buy it at a lower cost, right? So, and over time, we all know that property with inflation would bring the capital appreciation to a level that will multiply their wealth. So you're right, property prices has shifted downwards. For those people who dare to go in, they would enjoy the profit and the harvest later on. But it's a very scary time right now. Not everybody would dare to take a position. Everybody knows.
Can I tell you a joke, David?
Of course.
Can I share a joke? But I want you all to understand that this is a joke. And I know some of you here out there are struggling with the pandemic. My heart and my thoughts and my prayer go out to you. I feel for you. I understand what you're going through, because I've been there basically. But I actually joke with my management staff that I'm very, very thankful to COVID-19. I pray that the pandemic won't end so soon. And the reason is because when the pandemic started, I know that my competitors and those who are trying to copy us all have gone to sleep. And because they've gone to sleep, although the market size has gone down, our market share has actually increased. And we're happy to keep increasing the market share, because come recovery time, we'll be first off the block. And then we started to think a while ago, where we predicted that all this thing will happen. So exactly what you said, I now have a technological platform sitting on blockchain. I can actually, these intermediate lawyers, these intermediate bankers, a lot of intermediaries now, I can do financial transaction, whether it's stock financial transaction, forex financial transaction, on my digital platform, I can even fractionalize the asset basically. So in the past, you have to buy one lot of shares, which is about 500 shares or 1,000 shares. You know, with my technology, I can sell you one share. And you don't need a lawyer, you don't need a banker, you don't need any stockbroker because everything is sitting on the digital platform. It's a whole lot more secure. Your cost of operation goes down basically, and you're able to spread out your risk instead of putting all your money in one basket. So take the example of a property. Instead of buying a property for $500,000, you know, we can actually fractionalize it, and we are going to introduce this in a short while time. You can buy a property for $20,000, and that $20,000, you know, is going to be aggregated into a commercial space that is rent worthy. That means there's already a demand-driven rental there. There's already a tenant there. You collect actually money from the property itself. And because you don't borrow from a bank and you aggregate all these fractionalization assets together, you can actually leverage on the property, the building or the property you bought to actually leverage it to buy other property basically. So interesting times. My point of showing you this with all of you out there is this: when the world is thinking negatively, be optimistic. There's always faith. There's always a hope. There's always a possibility and opportunity out there. And thankfully, because everybody is being negative now, everybody is tightening their belt. This is where you and your team can rise up and say, I can capitalize on this opportunity. I can make use of this opportunity to increase my profit advantage and growth. David?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And in fact, I've been advising some of my clients to talk about this technology. And the platform itself is a big play where we used to have many stakeholders with technology like blockchain. We essentially link all the different stakeholders in a very transparent way, and all the journal entries are transparent to all parties. So, like you correctly put, fractional ownership of a property is something that's hard to come by. People invest in property jointly, usually with their brothers, sisters, siblings, or their close friends to go into a property investment. And those are still a very small play. But if you use Bitcoin and start to, or any tokens, and goes into a blockchain, fractional ownership of properties can happen, and retail investors can get into the game and says that I go into a certain property, industrial property, or even a retail store, and the operator would aggregate all the different investors without bank loan, and immediately in the month that they invest in, they can already accrue rental income to themselves based on the shares they hold or the token that they hold in the collective sales. So that is very possible. And in fact, MAS has already allowed for cryptocurrency exchange to be in the play, and that is part of the Payment Service Act. I think the next 12 months will be very interesting. Property players would have to relook at how they sell their property, because if they can appeal to this very broad retail mass of people going into fractional ownership because of technology enablement, the game will be up in a very different way. So it will not be a curious thing when somebody says I own 50 properties, right? Because they can own 2% of one property, 5% of another property, 20% of this property, not 100%, but even 1% in one property is considered one property. So that will be a very interesting play going forward. Shall we go to the next strategy? Because I think we have enough formal strategy to deal with. Jesse. Next slide. Okay. This is 釜底抽薪. This is a classic pull the fire out of the stove strategy. Without confrontation, through the removal of the fire or fuel, the battle and fight will cease. because they have no more fire to play, right? No more fire to cook. So if you look at the Hua on the left, you see a lot of you see 6 lines there, right? The top line is Qian. The bottom line is Zhe. So it's Zhe Xia Qian Shang. So you see a yin line right in the middle, right? So it just means to pull out the yin line, and the whole thing will collapse. So it's like when you play Lego and you do a stacking up, and then you pull out one piece, and then the whole Lego set falls apart. Come to the next slide, Jesse. So in conflict between US and China, US has instigated Australia to go and instigate an investigation, to ask for investigation to find how the virus arises. And very naturally, they are trying to allude that the whole virus comes from China and want China to make compensation. And China initially resisted and says, no, this cannot be the case. We will not oblige. But eventually, the president, China's president Xi, backed WHO to reveal the COVID-19 outbreak, because that was a fire that Trump was using to fuel the burning and to cause a lot of unhappiness. And because he keeps using it, and if China keeps insisting that it shouldn't be done, the fight will continue. So to solve the problem, I think President Xi did a very intelligent thing. He says, okay, now I'm going to oblige you. I'm going to take away the fire from the stove. And why are you going to argue now with me? I'm going to back the WHO, except that this investigation should be done independently, right? So this is how the strategy is going to play out. Next slide, Jesse. So now we localize the problem. So with unpaid leave, wage cut, lowered household income, how can a worker survive when there is no more fuel fire below the pot? Patrick?
You want me to take this from the perspective of the government, from a perspective of an employer, or from the perspective of a worker?
You try our perspective, then we add in.
Let me take it from three perspectives. From a government perspective, I think the government has done a good job by giving a lot of money to a lot of people. But I actually don't quite like the idea, because if you give somebody $900 to stay at home to do nothing, then there's a psychological effect called hysteresis, which means if you stop working for a while, it becomes harder and harder to go back to the ritual of a corporate discipline. I actually suggested to a minister that you should actually have like for lack of a better word, like a halfway house. I give you $900, but you must go to this halfway house. And in this halfway house is like going there from 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And then we will reskill you, upskill you, multi-skill you, and deep skill you, so that we will keep you well mentally and emotionally and psychologically, while at the same time engaging you to learn a new vocation, a new trade. And at the same time to find part-time job for you, so that you will feel useful, you're contributing. From an employer perspective, I think we all have an obligation to hold on to our people. I'm very, very sad to see people on the first week of the circuit breaker measure letting the people go. And I think that's not the way of a human. I don't think you want another human to treat you when you're old, not much of use to the community, to the industry, to your company, to your family. I don't think you want people to do that. So I'm very, very happy to say that I kept most of my people. I kept all my people, and I've also told them that we'll leave month to month. But so in April, we've given them full salary. May, we've given them full salary. And we also told them we're going to tell them a few days' time in June, we're giving them full salary. But we say we're all in it together, basically. So While I'm doing this, I'm also encouraging my people to look at how we can redesign the business model, as I mentioned just now, and how every one of them can fit into a new business model. So we tell ourselves our old company doesn't exist anymore. There's a new company, and the old you cannot be the same you moving forward, basically. From a worker's perspective, I think workers have to believe that there's a human spirit, there's a human potential within themselves. You know, the Chinese say, 天无绝人之路. If you read the Bible says God will never give you a problem so big you cannot solve. In other words, I think somehow when somebody created us, whoever you call that God is, He has created us with the facilities, the potential, and all the necessary resources to rise up. And we all can become freelancers, we all can become solopreneurs, we all can become free agents. There's always a way to be able to generate money, to keep yourself alive, and to generate enough money to provide for your loved ones. So if you, like I say, the first line of defense, if you hold your mind properly, hold your heart steadily, you will be able to find that there are a lot of possibilities and opportunities out there. And the world is your oyster. You don't have to think of just Singapore. My company was very shocked because we are essentially a Asian play. But because of this circuit breaker measure, where all of us are encouraged to stay at home, I calculated now we have customers from 20 countries now. So I joke with my people, don't let this pandemic end because suddenly, our company has become a global company. And we talk about it, for 4 or 5 years, it didn't happen. But because of this pandemic, you're forced to make it happen. So to those of you who are out there struggling, believe in yourself, believe that there's a potential inside you, there's a spirit in you, and believe that there's possibility and opportunity out there. Maybe this is the time for you to rise up, to become the best you. David.
Yeah. The COVID is not a good thing, but it shouldn't be prolonged because it cripples a lot of people. But at the same time, the COVID shifted behaviors, it shifted habits, it makes telecommuting a sudden reality for a lot of people. NTUC has been advocating for flexible work arrangement and telecommuting for a long time, and has been encouraging employers to be enlightened to allow for flexible work arrangements so that women with children can come back to work, and for women to re-enter workforce. And the traction is not high. There are a lot of friction along the way, but COVID changed all that. And suddenly everybody works from home, and the whole habit and behavior shifted, even to the point where now office landlord are concerned if people will string the rental and use less space to do the same thing. Because if the whole idea of office where people congregate in one space to do jobs or to deliver product and services, instead of that one center, now it's dispersal. So instead of one call center where people comes together, travel from the home, take public transport to go to office to work, and then during lunchtime goes down for their break, then comes out again to work, and then at 6 o'clock goes back home. Would that model disappear? I think in the next 6 months, we will see that many hybrids of working model will evolve. Employer and employee relationship would change. The concept of space, right, working in the space would change. The engagement method may change because people will say, hey, if I work from home, can I do a few more other gigs as well? Would the employer allows? So I see going forward, the whole structure of relationship between employer and employee would see a lot of variation. So that's the future. Like I said, when we are in the crisis today, we have to deal with an unpaid leave problem, which cut lower household income. Now, I've been advocating this to my clients and practicing it myself. We also have been paying full salary for many months, right up to May. June we'll be paying salary with some reduction, and there will come a period of time where some employer will take the no pay leave option, because simply there is no business going forward if their business rely on traveling, right? Like some travel business, there's no business to begin with. Even if the CB is lifted, if people are not allowed to travel, then the travel agency can't operate. So no pay leave option would be one way where their company would tell the employee, can you take no pay leave for 2-3 months? But of course, they can't force it upon the employee. They have to have a mutual understanding, and everybody comes together in solidarity and says, okay, we're going to pull this through. And in the meantime, we need to find things to do, right? During the no pay leave period, what the employee can do is to go and pick up a course under SkillsFuture and get the subsidy from the government. Now, it used to be during the peacetime, people are encouraged to go for learning and reskilling for the purpose of upgrading themselves in the trade that they're in. But in today's circumstances, a lot of business will go out of business. So it is no point to learn things in that trade to upgrade themselves. I think in the area of social media, digital savviness, how to use digital platform to deal with logistical flow, how to set up a business from dealing with collecting of money online to dispersing goods through logistic. These are skills that many employees should now have. So I encourage employers to send their employee during the no pay leave period to such courses, because the government is subsidizing up to 90% of it. And the best part of it is that the government is also going to give absenteeism payroll, meaning to say that they'll pay the workers to be trained. Now, if it's going to be 2 months, the workers can do 2 or 3 different courses back to back, to occupy their time. Because like you said correctly, people cannot be staying at home and do nothing and then receive the salary for that 1-2 months, even though it's full. They will rot and die. They'll die of boredom, or they will go mad. So by going for courses during the no pay leave period, they may be paid up to $10 an hour. Just imagine every day they go for courses and they do maybe 5-6 hours of courses. They can get $50-$60 absenteeism payroll, despite the fact that they are on unpaid leave. So in this period, the company, the employer, the worker, and the government needs to come out and says, look, the government is already providing all the different grants and facility to do learning. The employer therefore have to pick up the slack, hold the baton, and run along with it, so that during the 2-3 months of unpaid leave, the workers get trained, so that by the time September comes, October comes, when the COVID may be simmering away, and when the COVID suddenly disappear, if it suddenly disappear, and when there's a chance for economic reactivation, the employer comes back to office to work or to work at home through telecommuting, they have a new skill. They may appeal to a broader mass of customers and clients. And when that happens, the revenue will be multiplied 10 times, 5 times, 4 times, at least 2 times, because they used to go to visit their client 2 clients a day. But if they go online to do their marketing, they may be meeting more people on Zoom and selling their solution. And and revenue may be different. So I think at this period where workers are having wage cuts and unpaid leave, the best thing to do is to go for courses, learn something, and then you get compensated with the absenteeism payroll. Dorcas, any view on that?
Yeah, I think it's a two-way traffic between an employer and the employee to ensure that they continue to have their job. That's most important. Like for me, myself, right, I do have one temp staff with us. So of course, it's really hard to think about how to pay the temp staff, right? So traditionally, when he comes in, he will need to actually clock in hours, right? But in order to continue to keep him, we need to actually discuss with him, how about we pay you on task basis because it's administrative, per thing that you do, company, is it okay that we pay this task, how much, this task, how much? So we have a list of item and see whether he's agreeable that this task is how much. And when he say, okay, no problem, that's fine, then we will let him do it. So of course, in terms of the volume of the work, we have got quite a few staff actually doing that administrative function. So he's one of them. So generally, we realized that maybe not enough job for him to keep him occupied. Because a lot of things is like, when he actually sent to me, a lot of things, I realized that I spent a lot of time doing the DocuSign non-stop. So I just realized that he actually said that, hey, boss, I'm not busy enough, so is it okay that I pick up a temp job just here and there, just a couple of hours? I said, sure, go ahead, why not? So I think at this time, in this point in time, right, being employers, is important to be also humane, be flexible. If the job itself isn't able to keep your employees occupied or busy enough, that they might not be able to earn enough from working for you, please be a little bit more humane to allow your employees to actually venture out to do something else also. Just like a lot of the clients, especially the retail clients that I've seen I'm working with, they are cutting a lot of their base salary of their people. But also employees got to be a little bit fair to the employers also, because give you an example, if you work from home, generally you might not really be working that 8 hours or 10 hours that you typically work. Everybody knows, right? So it's kind of like fair in a way that in exchange of a little bit more time with the family, you get a little bit pay cut here and there to pull through this period to help your employer. So I think it's a two-way traffic that both help each other and understand each other so that we can pull through this epidemic together.
So this is exactly what I mean when you allow your employee to do other jobs, because the employer-employee relationship would change as a result. Workloading is very important. So if you start to charge or pay by piecemeal work, then the employee is really an independent contractor because he's not on full-time basis, and he may be on a contract. And now the contract is defined by the parcel of work he does for you. So for such scoping of work and compensation that goes along with it, what really defines the kind of relationship you have with your employee. This is what I mean when I say that the employer and employee relationship would change down the road, and many hybrids will come about. And as a HR practitioner, we have to be forward-looking and start to understand how this kind of relationship will work. Because at the end of the day, the workers must not be disadvantaged as a result of such arrangement, because they may not have CPF, they may not have medical insurance, they may not have coverage. So such things may have to be contemplated. I think at the government level and at the NTUC level, this has to be contemplated together to make sure that fair arrangement would be accorded to the workers. Maybe we should move on to the next strategy, Jesse. This is 关门抓贼. So this is to surround, to capture, guerrilla style attack by counterparty. So you have to lock the door. The person that goes into your premise is usually small, guerrilla format, using small force to provoke. So the best approach will be to ambush, surround, and to capture, and then dissolve the counterparty force. I show you an example. Jesse, next slide. This is the bacteria white blood cells and bacteria. You look at the movement of the white blood cells, they're chasing after the bacteria, right? And then after that, they will envelope the bacteria and then dissolve the bacteria. So even in our body, strategy like that is being applied. Next slide, Jesse. So twice as many Hong Kong employers have laid off staff compared to their Singapore peers as COVID-19 eats into bottom line survey finds. So people always compare Hong Kong and Singapore, right? So in this context, do you think Singapore has fared poorly vis-a-vis Hong Kong? Next slide, Jesse. So should Singapore employers start to right size and to reduce headcount? Patrick?
I think the first thing to do is not to think of how to right size or downsize. I think the first thing to do is to ask yourself, what are tomorrow's opportunity you can capitalize on from today? What are tomorrow's problems they can resolve from today? So which means I think the first starting point is really to look at your business model and see how can you redesign, refresh, reinvigorate your business model to capitalize on the possibilities and opportunity out there. As you're speaking right now, if David, you don't mind me doing a bit of an advertisement, I'm actually hiring 5 to 10 new people. I'm looking for sales people, I'm looking for business development people, I'm looking for market development people, I'm also looking for real estate agents to do some interesting work in the real estate world. And of course, the reason I do that is because I see there are a lot of opportunities out there, and I'm very, very encouraged in the last 6.5 weeks. My whole team has been able to recreate our business model because we saw a lot of opportunities out in the marketplace. And then we also realized there are many other opportunities. They're either left behind by other people that didn't want to do any more work. They're downsizing. They are tightening their belt basically. So we're gonna hire people to see whether we can further develop this new market, these new opportunities basically. So we're not confined to exactly what business we're in. We don't want to draw the line, put labels on us anymore. Of course, whoever join us must also have a certain degree of compromise. We can't pay you what you used to get. There is no salary structure level, similar to pre-pandemic level. So we all have to compromise. If you're willing to join us, take a step down, and then we will use you because there's no guarantee we'll make money, but we'll work with you to see whether we can capitalize on this new market, new opportunities we've identified. And we're also preparing ourselves for recovery. We don't think the pandemic will go on forever. Experts say anywhere between 9 months to 18 months. So it is better for us to start thinking of what we can do after the pandemic has blown over. And this is where I think Singapore shines really brightly. During the global economic crisis, some of you may or may not remember, but in 2010, Singapore GDP grew by 14.5%. We are the fastest growing country in the world economically. We are second to Dubai, but Dubai is not a country. So in terms of a country, we're number one. I think as a corporation, we also need to think along that line at the same time. Of course, I'm not saying you should think of how to grow without thinking of how to survive and then overstretch yourself and collapse at the same time, basically. But having said that, you have to really look at your headcount and see, who are the people you need to groom into your new business model, who are the people that cannot be groomed, then you have to think of how to place them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Really.
Dorcas, your view?
Hi. I think it's not so much about thinking about even downsizing right now. I think it's as much as we can as employers, we try to keep our people with us because we are just thinking within the next 6 months, if things gets better, our our army is still there, right? It's really also hard to train up people and people with cert to opt-in. So these are the little advice I would like to tell each and every of the employer out there. If you can, try to hang on to all your employees, because when you need to be on wall again, they are around to fight for you. But I think it's important that you take care of them for this 6 months while we actually figure out what's going on with this COVID situation. But with every setback, there's always business opportunities, just like what Dr. Patrick has said. Just give you an example, I've got a client from Taiwan, interestingly, because of the US and China conflict, right? They decided that they wanted to set up their base in Singapore because it's less sensitive. So these are little opportunities that we thought, hey, that's interesting. So maybe we can actually target more of the Taiwanese client. Who knows? 10 years ago, when I was working for a recruitment agency, the SARS outbreak. So that time, I still remember I came, I think, really long time ago, more than that, actually 18 years ago, in fact. So what happened was I quickly set up this SARS task force, this project management team, to actually capture and start to divert our resources and energy into the healthcare sector, to basically create something which is very unique. During that time, like 18 years ago, it was like, SARS task force, project management team. We actually deploy all the people on the ground for them. So these are the little things that actually led our company previously, that I was working for this recruitment company, right through the storm. And not only did we make it, we made tremendous amount of profit during that time. So I believe what Dr. Patrick has said, there's always opportunities in every bad things. See whether you want to look at the situation, half the glass to be half empty or half full. So I think there's if there's one opportunity or just one business to be done, you got to have the right mindset to say, is your people ready to take up that challenge, to capture that market? And with the more people being retrenched and lots of people out of job, right? I got to say, for the recruitment industry, right, there's a lot more opportunities for quality people, I got to say, that usually could be earning a big fat salary. But it's just that they have lost their job. They don't mind trying out a new industry. Or maybe they might just really be okay, rather than having no salary, to try out a job that has got lower base, but higher commission, that type of compensation structure. So in order to continue to have a job, I think employees can be a little bit flexible in terms of their thinking, that maybe in future the remuneration model might be a little bit more lesser base and more commission based on performance, based on whether you can achieve the account, whether you can win that particular contract, things like that. So with both sides having understanding of each other, I think we can actually pull through this together.
So how does the strategy that I highlighted just now applies to this? So we have to close the door and then chase the bacteria, envelope it, and kill the bacteria. Right now, we have a situation where we have to close the door. The company has to rationalize their resource and see how they can survive. The pertinent question is, how long can a company go on paying salary when they don't have revenue? This is a very real question. I'm sure when the CB is lifted, many companies in the F&B, for boutique hotels, for months they have not gotten visitors to come by and patronize them. They are hung while they have to pay for rental and pay for wages. They don't have revenue coming in, and this is not a hypothetical situation. This is a real situation on the ground. So the pertinent question is, how long can an employer pay salary and to continue paying for expenses and not have revenue? And my guess is that many people cannot last 2-3 months beyond what they could afford. If you have 3 months worth of cash flow, 4 months worth of cash flow, and if you go down the road without a reinvented model for you to generate new revenue, then you'll be in trouble. So the rationalization part, we have to look at it deep and hard, because it's a real problem. Of course, it's nice to say that we like to keep all the employees. That's a compassionate thing to do. For those people who after we rationalize things that they may not fit the new structure, a responsible employer would therefore send that employee for training so that the employee will be good for another organization and help to outplace the employee to a job that may be suitable. One possible way, right? Or to ask that particular employee to be trained to do a job that is not her original role. And the employee must be able to take that role and have the gumption to say that I will do it because my last job is no longer available. And if an employee says, no, I don't want to do this job because I can't do it, then it is an option opened by the employer to retain. And then if the employee refuses, then options are given to pay the employee off so that the employee can go off to look for another job. So I think right sizing and possibly reduction in some of the headcount may be something that employer have to consider down the road. Now, in today's context, I think our government has been very generous as they have even paid for 75% of the wages for all Singaporeans and PRs. And at the same time, when they hold up a whole group of over 300,000 foreign workers in dormitories because of the high infection rate. And this is the first time that the government instituted a levy rebate that goes into hundreds of millions of dollars. So every time they do an exercise like that, about 600 over million of dollars is spent on the employer so that the employer can pay to the foreign workers while they are resting themselves back to health. For our local Singaporeans, our government has given salary support to the tune of 75%, and that goes into billions of dollars to support. And those are like lifeline thrown into the water to help the employer stay afloat. And once the support is taken away, many companies will go belly up, and that's natural. And we should not be too harsh on ourselves because we need to make sure that all our tier 1, our A league will survive. The B league, the C league, the D league and companies would go away quietly because they cannot survive this crisis. So during this COVID, actually would do a rejig of the competition. The stronger the company, those with stronger cash flow that can outlast and survive would survive, right? The B league, some of them will do well and then move to the A league, but some of them cannot survive. The C league would definitely not be able to survive very long because if the thing is prolonged, they will just be decimated. So before they're decimated, of course, everyone carries employee with them, right? And if they do not go into the process of even doing right sizing as a strategy, tactical strategy, then they will not survive very long because if they only have 2 months of cash flow, comes June or comes July, because the government is going to make another announcement of budget support to companies, we have to see what budget the government is coming out with. And if the support does not come through to some sectors, some employers just go under. So I think it is rational and sensible for employer to start to look at it, close their doors, look at the reconstitution of the company, and rationalize and make sure that every person that stays in the company get retained, get trained, get re-energized, so that when the economy start to pick up, or when the volume of trade start to come in again, they have a brand new set of workforce with new skills to take them through the future. Anything else to add for this, Patrick?
I want to redefine enemy, because since we're talking a lot about enemy today, to me, the two biggest enemies I have, the first one is myself. The second biggest enemy is COVID-19 and the pandemic. And I think everything that we discussed in all these 36 strategies, if we redefine enemy, maybe we can find a better way to take ourselves to a higher level. And if David doesn't mind, I actually wrote a letter to COVID-19. And if you don't mind, at the end of this session, I'd like to read this letter, because I look at COVID-19 in the face, treat COVID-19 as my enemy, and review my better plan against COVID-19, which is very in line with your strategies.
Of course. And it is addressed to Mr. COVID or Miss COVID or Madam COVID.
I dare not call COVID-19 as Miss. My wife, I'm living with 4 women in my life. My helper is lady, my dog is a lady, my 2 daughters are lady, my wife is a lady. So, and that's the reason why I wanted to speak here, because when I go out afterward, I've got no chance to speak anymore. That's a joke, right?
All right, man. So shall we move on to the next strategy, Jesse? This strategy is a posturing. It's about giving an idea, your counterparty a certain perception that you're doing something. 假道法国, right? It's like you go and to one area and you try to construct something, and then the counterparty looks at it and says, hey, they are spending their resources in constructing that something, or pave a road, right? To a certain territory. You are paving a road in a specific terrain to a certain territory, giving the false impression that you are focusing attention on that, but they're actually doing something else. So another way of putting it is you're trapped between 2 large power base, and you have to use a reason or pretense to divert attention to sway the force of confrontation between the 2 large power, so as to save yourself as well. So the action of building the roads, or the action of doing something else, or allowing your port to be used by either of the country for free movement of goods and services, right? Giving the impression that you are not standing against party A or standing against party B, but you have to balance the play of power. Can we have the next slide, Jesse? This is what happened to us in Singapore. Singapore to deepen ties with both US and China rather than choose sides. And this is a recent article. I mean, knowing full well that there's a imminent conflict between US and China. And our foreign minister comes out to say that we have to deepen our ties, right? We're not saying that we have to choose side, but both sides will deepen ties. So that gives an impression that we have to balance our risks to manage a relationship. But I think sometimes when the push comes to a shove, we have to take a position. But so far, throughout our decades of foreign relationship, Singapore have played this game very nicely and very fairly, where we are respected on both sides. That we managed to survive huge wave that arises, and when elephant dance, the floor bounce. But while the wave are pounding on both sides, our little ship and vessels still stay afloat despite the big wave. So I think that is clever posturing by Singapore government. Next slide, see. So politics aside, and not taking sides, how can Singapore business survive in this fight between China and US? Patrick, the difficult question goes to you first.
I have to tell I have to make this confession, Doctor.
You look so straight. Hey, you look, don't forget.
For all of you out there, in case you think that we have been primed on this question, Dorcas and I didn't see the question until just before this session. I think maybe David want to test us, how well we think on the spot. So we have no preparation for this question at all, basically. And so I want to see, I mean, in every dark cloud, there's always a silver lining, like what Dorcas just said, if there is a battle between Singapore, between America and China, there'll be fallouts, people don't want to stand in between the way. And so that fallout, if they will come to Singapore, basically, hopefully we attract the higher value added, higher profit margins of an enterprise. Instead of being in America, instead of being in China, maybe they come to Singapore, and then Singapore can be a switching center to both parties. Let me give you an example. Like we all know that a lot of companies move to Singapore. Why? A lot of European companies actually move to Singapore. A lot of British companies move to Singapore without naming names. Why do they move here? Because interestingly enough, if they're in England, when they export their product to Europe, they will be subject to a lot of tariffs, a lot of changes going on. But when they move to Singapore, they actually can export to Europe without all the major tariffs. So we have a free trade agreement with Europe, with European Union, where if we assemble all the parts in Singapore, that means we get the parts from ASEAN, we assemble them in Singapore, we export to EU, we actually don't have to pay any tariff at all. So whenever there's problem, so in the case of UK and EU, and in the case of US and China, there will be fallout, and then we can write on this fallout. Let me give you an example. Outside Sembawang camp, you see a whole row of a small little stall that sells all kinds of equipments, all kinds of clothing for soldiers. They also sell all kinds of things for jungle trekking, mountaineering. There's a little boy at the back of one of the shop. And very interesting enough, he's actually selling cargo pants all over the world. So I asked him, where do you buy a cargo pants from? Say from China. I said, why don't all these countries buy directly from China? Why do they buy from you? And he said, because they don't trust China, but they trust Singapore. So they know that my cargo pants come from China, but they buy from me because they trust me and they trust Singapore. So I think this is where we can actually see the silver lining in every dark cloud. Another strategy is basically to apply the Wei Qi strategy. We will end up either it will be a bipolar world, it will be a multipolar world. And at the end of the day, we can look at in between the two giants and see there are other opportunities. So as it is, our government is already saying that our playground, at least for the next 10 years, will be in ASEAN, because ASEAN is going to be one of the fastest growing region. We have the largest population eventually, and we'll eventually be collectively ASEAN is going to be the fourth biggest economy basically. But beyond ASEAN, there are many, many countries that we can go into, and because we are Singapore, because we are a friendly party, because we stand on high moral ground with good friendly image, we can go to many, many places. I give you an example. A good friend of mine, Inderjit Singh, who is a former member of parliament, he if I tell you his revenue for his company, I think you'll fall off your chair. And he basically target only a few countries in Africa. And when he told me about those countries, I don't even know them. I don't even know those countries exist. And because of that, he went into those countries, and his home appliances is one of the top 3 selling brands in those countries. I mean, they're very famous brands, established brands, prominent brands who spend millions of dollars in advertising, and he actually ended up being one of the top 3 brands in those countries. He has actually gone into those areas that, that people fail to go into. So I'm still building on what I was saying all the time. There's a lot of opportunity that possibly out there. And there's no reason why, even during a pandemic, all this possibility will die, all this opportunity will die. And all you have to do is switch on what the medical doctor call the reticular activating system. This is your CPU, your conscious mind, or your antenna to find these opportunities. David?
Okay. Dorcas, your view?
So if you take a look at the EDB website, right, Singapore is well positioned to actually serve the entire world in terms of business lah. So we always claim ourselves to be first in Asia for innovation, first in the world for doing business, the easiest location in the world to do business because of the location of our port and things like that. So in a way, and we are always politically quite neutral. So with the in between this US and China, this tit for tat tariffs, war. I think we, in a way, Singapore is actually positioned to be doing okay as compared to a lot of ASEAN countries. So we can use that as our advantage, actually. So there is still going to be businesses to be done, but it's just a matter of the whole business amount is going to be shrunk. And who is the one, which companies can survive this? Are the companies that can constantly innovate and change and move along with the times. And the companies with leaders that could smell the businesses that nobody has even thought about, going into countries that nobody would even think about or don't even know, according to what Dr. Patrick has said. These are the companies that basically are the forefront in terms of their game. So that's the reason why they survive better than the rest.
So the key principle here is trust. I think the winning formula for Singapore companies is trust factor in Singapore. And the second thing would be the multilateral trade treaties that we sign with many other countries. And the trade pact will facilitate trade movement between Singapore and many other countries. So, like your example, where many people will be buying from Singapore because they trust the Singapore brand, right? There are many products in China, and in fact, China is the factory of the world. The whole world knows that. When we have the US China trade tariff, the whole world got frozen up because the whole world global logistics supply chain all move out from China. Even the component parts also come from China. Even in today's time, the COVID test kit, a lot of the component parts of those testing equipment or the test kit themselves all come from China. So the Chinese brand has also slowly built upon their trust foundation. But in Singapore, we becomes the switch between China and US. If we can play this game deftly and wisely, we will be the bridge and the connector. And this is what we have been doing all the time. And now that we know the online space is becoming very entrenched in the way we live, I think our MAS has been very enlightened under the current MD, Ravi Menon. He allows for a free play of all the fintech and makes Singapore a fintech hub. And this fintech would start to establish a presence in Singapore and start building exchanges and making ourselves into a hub of many types, including cryptocurrency trading, where the flow of money, the flow of goods and services, the flow of people used to be our advantage. Now we also have to manage the flow of crypto, the flow of data into Singapore. And if we can properly connect this fintech flow with the fintech talent and the funds that comes in to invest in such companies and to create Singapore into marketplace, online marketplaces for fashion, for certain sectors, right? Even for semiconductors, then Singapore will be in play. We know that we don't need space to succeed. We all know that in the online world, everything is virtual. So even a small Singapore can survive in a game like that because we do not need space to win anymore. So the space itself will not be our limitation. It used to be our limitation. So if we can prime ourselves correctly in this space and pivot Singapore on three things, right? The first thing would be the trust, where we already have it. People trust our legal system, our legal infrastructure. The second part would be to use all the bilateral, multilateral trade pacts to win the game, to make sure that we remain relevant to the entire world through all the different connections. And the third part is to make sure that we pivot ourselves correctly as a marketplace for all the virtual transaction, be they online commerce, be they cryptocurrency exchange, be they blockchain for even property transaction. They can start buying properties through our blockchain, properties in London, property in Bangkok, property in Philippines, property in Indonesia, and everything is done on our Singapore blockchain structure that is robust. And if the whole world subscribe to this, we can win in this game. So I think politics aside and not taking sides, I think Singapore business can survive if they play on these three strengths. Jesse, can we move on to the next slide? This is camouflaging the real intent and act otherwise. To pretend that I'm silly, but I'm actually not mad. Next slide, Jesse. This is pretending. That's an octopus, yeah. The octopus that pretends to look like the plant, and then when it starts to move, right, it goes in the aggressive mode to take on the prey. The next one, it looks innocuously like part of the plant, but that's an octopus. Okay. Workers may be stressed to the point of losing grip of reality, right? And proportions. How should they respond to the double whammy crisis? It looks like the same question. But the fact that people are losing their mind over the prolonged segregation, not meeting friends, people start to react funny. And we look at some of our social distancing ambassador getting abused, cursed at, and people behave differently because of the isolation. Their grip on reality start to shift. And if this thing is to be prolonged, can Singaporean adapt to such situation? And what if this COVID-19 outlasts SARS or even the Spanish flu and take more than a year to go away? What will happen? Patrick?
I thought this is a quite appropriate time for me to read this letter I wrote to COVID. And this is the letter I wrote to COVID and I circulated among my staff. And I hope this will also inspire and encourage all of you out there because in some way it addresses this issue at the same time. And because of this letter, my people have come together, become very united. Literally within 1 week, we transform ourselves from a brick and mortar, truly brick and mortar company into an online business. We created 2 or 3 online products that generated very good revenue. And in the last 6.5 weeks, we really promoted ourselves to more than 30,000 people. We have done virtual presentations to more than 3,000 over people. And so I believe there must be something to do with this letter. So
Please tell us.
yeah, I'm going to read this letter. It's going to be very, very quick. And if you find very, very good, maybe later on, after this session is over, I will post it on my Facebook. Just go to Dr. Patrick Liu, and then I'll post it there. You can download it, and then tomorrow I'll delete it away. Okay, dear COVID-19, you have caused angst, anxiety, and anger in many parts of the world. However, we don't see you as a challenge. We actually see you as an opportunity. We cannot change you, but we can improve ourselves to be a better human. We cannot preempt and prevent infection, but we can create and continue to improve on new organizational models and systems to achieve success. We cannot eliminate you and eradicate your problems, but we can develop an able, agile, and adaptable team to respond to every of your problems and secure a better future. We cannot prevent you from turning our world upside down, but we can certainly transform our world right side up. Strange but true, it took a COVID-19 pandemic to further enlighten us about the potentials and possibilities of the human spirit. You compel us to stay at home, but we have learned to work anytime and anywhere and in any way to achieve results. You gave us shock and surprises, but we learned to work just in time and just in case whatever happened. You locked us in, but we freed our spirit to reach out to a world of possibilities and opportunities. You tried to divide and destabilize us, but we learned how to collaborate and co-create solutions. You stifled and slowed us down, but we found ways through digitalization and automation to achieve radical breakthroughs. You caused interruptions and intrusions to our work, but we came up with innovations and initiatives to achieve progress. You endeavored to damage and destroy us, but we persisted and persevered to accelerate and accomplish greater impacts. You made us dwell on our internal world, but we leveraged on our external world and network with partners to enhance our contribution, advance, and growth. You engrossed us with issues of safety and survival, but we went beyond that to enhance security and stability. You created potholes and pitfalls to end our journey, but we found endless platitudes and platforms to help us reach our desired destination. Watch out, COVID-19. We are ever ready. Whip it on. We will fight on to turn every battle into a victory from our team.
Well done, Patrick. Must come from you. Dorcas?
I think it's important that I think we all stay in it together. I think we have heard so many times we're in it together, we are in it together, but what does it really mean? I think we can take this opportunity to really think through. I think it's important to give ourselves a breakthrough, just like how Dr. Patrick has re-innovated, changed his company from what traditionally it was to something which is totally different. So all these things are very encouraging, and I thought that if, let's say, we could all think out of the box, I thought this COVID-19 might be a time that maybe even touch it out if it lasts for a year or so. It could be even a time that because of the crisis we are in, we need to all look for new opportunities, right? All of us will become entrepreneurs who set up something, or even think about people who owns one company. That stream of revenue might not be enough to feed everybody, could potentially own a second company, right? So the is actually limitless. Like even my own husband is a doctor, he's a physician. So interestingly, because of the COVID situation, he needs to do teleconsult. So he was actually used to just consulting local patients, right? Most of the time. But right now his patients are from all over the world. It's quite interesting that you could even be exposed to even the COVID situations, in even South Africa, things like that. So I think for each setbacks, we would always have the opportunity, and there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
I'm certain that there will be light at the end of the tunnel. To put it very bluntly, this COVID-19 is an influenza. It's a flu that we are very used to, and just that this is a different strain. It happens to kill more people, and the way they infect is the same as a typical flu. So it may be one of the variety of flu that we have to deal with, subject to them not mutating further, which is very unlikely. They were likely to be mutating. Even the Spanish flu is a variant of this COVID-19. So it is just a period for us to walk through. This is a tunnel. It is not as frightening, just that our government has taken some steps and measures to make sure that this flu do not kill to the extent of the Spanish flu, where 50 million people died. But if you look at the practices then and practices today, 100 years later, they also have mask wearing, they also have isolation, but they have such a large number of people dying is because of certain approaches they take. But life will be reset anew. Some flora and fauna will die and pass off, and a new crop would rise up again. And when that new crop of new plants or new businesses that flourish, that will take us through for the next decade. So like I've said, in today's context, the B League and C League and the D League, possibly the C League and the D League, would be eliminated from the game. The weaker one would just die away because they have no roots, or with very weak roots, or the roots not deep enough to go deep down to gather water, and which is the cash flow. And in this time, cash flow is everything for a company. We're not talking about profitability, because a very small group of us will be able to make money in today's time. A large number of people would have to re-pivot their business because demand, like we said, the demand, the consuming public are still consuming, except that they're consuming with different transaction. They are no longer going out to the hawker center or to the restaurant to consume, but they have to order things to buy back. And I believe this behavior would not be permanent, because once COVID can be treated like a typical flu with vaccine, we would live our life back to normal. But the normal that we have then would not be the normal that we have had before COVID, because habits have already shifted. People are more familiar and more comfortable with the new digital lifestyle. So we may have more learning through platforms like Zoom, and we may have big talks and convention. I mean, Patrick has a company called Success Resources that organize big and huge conferences where thousands of people attend, and that is one of his company. And in times like that, people goes online to learn things, and conventions and convention in a physical location may just be an experience because you can feel the vibe when you are there. The space itself contains the energy. Where you have conversation through Zoom, content may not be lost, but you may not feel the vibration in the space itself. So experience is still something that people clamor for, right? We are social people. We are mostly social. We like to see, feel, and touch. So in a convention, people can feel the yell, the vibration, the happiness, the hugs, because we go to when we hear something that's so motivational. So in a setting like that, it is very hard for us to feel that kind of vibration. So people still needs to do things in a certain way. So post-COVID, behavior will change, habits will change, but we must not expect it to be the same as before COVID. Next slide, Jesse. So I have 5 recommendations, which is A, B, C, D, E. And just to wrap it up, Patrick, would you like to have your take? Because this is the last slide.
Sorry, what's the thing again?
Your take how about this whole thing? I mean, how would you like to wrap up this this chat?
I want to just wrap up by sharing with you what I share with my staff. I say we are like going through a storm, and sometimes it's good to have a storm because after the storm, the world will look more beautiful. The world will be rejuvenated. And I say our life is like a garden, and I ask them what kind of trees and plants you want to be. There'll be trees that will lead the way, bring value, shelter, and prominence to the garden. They bear fruit, support lives, and rejuvenate the whole garden for future growth. And then you have flowers. Flowers very important. Beautify the garden, bring fragrance, uplift people, become a channel of love, joy, optimism, and hope. And then we have plants and vegetables, very useful. They provide all the vitamins, the nutrients to support us to live well and to live good, and then they preserve life and strengthen all our health and overall wellness. And then we also have a few kind of plants, one of which we call weeds. Weeds give people more work, they are burden, they are baggage. The gardener have to take time to go remove them. And there's one last category of plant known as parasitic plants. And they extract nutrients and water from the living trees and plants, and they depend on others for their survival. I always feel that weeds and parasitic plants also have their place in society. Why do I say that? Is because in the grand scheme of things, you think about it, they offer lessons to all of us, to the gardener, to the stakeholders, and they compel us to stay vigilant, protect ourselves, maintain, and improve the garden. And the good news is that trees and plants cannot change their position, their performance, their values, and contribution, but humans can. So the question I pose to my staff, and the same question I want to pose to all of you: what kind of tree will you become? What kind of plant will you be after this huge storm? Because someday, this is a defining moment. Someday your children and your children's children will ask you, what did you do during COVID-19 pandemic? Did you become a better human? Did you capitalize on all the opportunities and possibilities? Because by then they have seen people become rich, become successful. And they will ask you, why didn't you think of all those things? And then you will have stories to tell. There will be stories you tell that will be full of regret and remorse. Or there'll be stories that you can tell that will keep you alive, excited, even in the evening of your life, and give you sweet dreams. And those stories will continue to inspire and encourage and motivate people for generations to come. What kind of trees and plants? Thanks, David.
Well said, Patrick. Well said. Doctors, how about yourself?
So Patrick described his team as garden. I'll always describe my team as a body, a human body. You always say that I think in a team there's all types of function, and everybody has got different skill set. Just like some of my team members are better administratively, some are better in the sales aspect. So generally, I think each one of us, some function like eyes, some functions like hands, some function like a stomach. So everybody's function is very different, but together we make wonders. So I always encourage my team to be able to use and play to the strength. It's very important. Even in this COVID situation, right, it's really important that we ourselves knows where our strength lies in. And then for those weaknesses that we have, we work on it. This is the best time. E-learning. Go for more workshops, conferences, and things like this to upgrade ourselves, right? So nobody is perfect. So when we ourselves knows during busy time when work is really too heavy, we don't have time for time to actually build ourselves up. We ourselves knows where's our weaknesses, but the thing is we do not have time most of the time, right? You know, just you get cooped up in the business, you get cooped up with getting the work done. But right now with the extra time on hand, maybe extra 20-30% of the time, of course, the extra time you can spend with the family. On top of that, you can actually upgrade yourself to ensure that the gaps is drawn closer so that everybody in the team can function like eye, hands, stomach, head, everything. It's just like you need to be a well-rounder to be able to survive this COVID-19. So as what David has actually described, layering the different caliber of staff, right? So at the end of the COVID, the stronger ones will win, and they will probably be the one that kept their job. So you need to ask yourself, which category are you? And are you able to be the last one standing when everybody else died? So I think an encouragement to all of you out there that if you yourself is willing to change, nobody could stop you. It's only when you look at things in a very negative angle at all the time, there is no opportunities out there, we're all going to die, then we are all really going to die. So one encouragement out there is there's still business to be done. There's still things to be learned. So get out there and make yourself productive.
Well said, Dorcas. So maybe let me wrap up with my recommendation. I think I put it in 5 ways: A, B, C, D, E. A, it's the absorption of the shock. We must come face to face with the reality that the future has shifted. It's not going to be the same. We are entering into a new normal. So don't expect that post-COVID, the situation will be the same as before. My mother asked me a lot of questions and asked me whether, can she do this? Can she do that? Can she start to visit her friends when COVID is, the CB is lifted? And I said, Mom, you can't do that. The whole behavior between people will change. So do not expect the old normal to be the new normal. So we will be entering the new phase of behavioral change. So habit to have to change. So A, we have to absorb the shock. B is to breathe. I think it's important for us to recognize that this is a problem that nobody expect. Nobody can anticipate for it. And to say that our government is not doing this good enough, not doing that good enough, nobody would have the foresight, even feng shui master, right, to tell that a calamity as large as this would emerge. And everybody is mitigating this through a risk assessment format. So have it on mind that we have a very strong government who is supporting us through with all kind of help rendered through companies, to employers, to workers, to independent contractors, right down to the people who are unemployed, to the granular level where people still need help. They have other packages to come in to help. So breathe, because we know that you are in a community and support group that pulls all of us together. I think we all look forward to the next budget by the government to see how are they going to take us through a further round. C, it's cost containment. Like I said, cash flow is everything to employers, also to individual who have to manage the family. So you have to manage your cost and to bring down the cost of expenses and to make sure that this cost is properly contained. Now, I said just now, we have to close the door, relook at all the resources, and if necessary, to reconstitute, to make sure that you survive today. Because cash flow is everything. If you have only 2 months worth of cash flow to pay, 3 months worth of cash flow to pay, the best approach is to go forth to your employee and share the reality with them so that they can go back to A and absorb the shock right? To know the state of the company, and then you bring together people and explain to them the problem, and then if they accept it, they will charge ahead with you and stay with you in the company. D, you have to now divide the line. You have a traditional way of working. Now, the traditional way of working is something that you may be very familiar with because you have been using the same method year in, year out for the last 10, 15 years. So that is the approach that you have taken to make your money. But you need to now divide the line into a digital line as well, or maybe 3 lines, maybe 4 lines, because you need to explore the different lines to see which one works. And as you split and divide the line, your traditional line plus the digital 1 line, digital 2 line, digital 3 line, and see which one works, you are on the same fair playing ground with all your competitors. Whether your competitor was stronger than you before or smaller than you, everyone has the same experimental bias. So try out, divide the lines, try out the different lines, and see which one works. Now, what's E? If you find that one of the line works, right, then you elevate the curve for that particular line. And that particular curve and that particular line may become your predominant way for you to do business. So with this A, B, C, D, E, you will start to understand how you should react to the problem to the point where you have to ask yourself, what is my digital story for my business going forward in post-COVID period? So with that, I'd like to end the chat. I thank Dr. Patrick. I'd like also to thank Dorcas for sharing your precious view with all of us. Jessie is coming on. Anything to add?
Yes, thank you. No, I have a really good learning session backstage. All of you are really giving me a lot of advice here. So thank you very much, Dr. Patrick, and also Dorcas, and also Mr. David Leong for this session. Thank you very much. And also for all the audiences who are still here, thank you very much for being with us throughout the 2.5 hours. Yes,
Wow, that's
thank you
long.
very much.
That's long.
Yes, 2.5 an hour.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good night.